Good morning, here, now, or never. Today, daily chapter reading, chapter 18. Admittedly, I was thrown off course when Mom let us in, afraid I'd lost control, but Thomas now feels sorry for me. The story about Misty, which is true, plus Mom's taunts and Dad's discomfort, pushed him along. Goal achieved. Thomas pities me, and that's a weapon I can use to manipulate him. But I don't just want his sympathy, I want him to believe. I'm not sure why that matters to me, but it does. I probably shouldn't have kissed him. It was meant to throw him off, but he responded. And I did too.
Doors normally open on the left.
I read that prisoners become attracted to their captors, and he's definitely holding my career hostage. Do I want him to believe as some kind of twisted revenge or as a validation? Dinner is a series of uncomfortable three-word conversations. Pass the salt. Wes, more rice? Delicious meal, Hannah. Thomas is abysmal at eating with chopsticks, the only utensils Mom provide. After watching him try and fail repeatedly, even with the sticky rice, I finally take pity and say, hold the upper chopstick like a pencil, 1/4 of the way up like this. Good, now place the other stick against your ring finger and secure it with the bottom of your thumb. I reach over and help him get it right. My fingers pressed against his warm skin. Okay, now move the top chopstick with your index, thumb, and middle fingers. Thomas tries to pick up a clump of rice, but only a few grains make it into his mouth. It takes some practice. I get him a fork. He eats quickly, eyes down. I almost feel sorry for him. When he's done, he compliments Mom, then attempts to hide his fork beneath the edge of his plate. Thomas says, since we don't have much time together, I'd like to ask a few more questions. He pulls out his phone, sets it on the dining table. Mind if I record? Yes, Hannah says, and I've already answered your questions. Mr. Young? Thomas asks, swapping his phone for a notebook and a pen. It'd be great to hear from you too. Dad glances at Mom. She half shrugs. Go ahead. Any favorite stories about Sylvie to share? Mom daintily picks up a piece of chicken but doesn't eat it. She's hardly touched the food on her plate, just moved it in a different position. Dad finishes the last drop of his beer, Freedom, made at a local brewery.
Doors normally open on the left.
Thomas dusted his 5 minutes into the uncomfortable meal. Any worries I had about my parents spilling too much of my past, things I didn't know, or secrets that could hurt me are long gone. They have even less desire to tell Thomas anything than I do. We just need to get through this dinner, take off in the morning, and never come back. Dad says, she always did well in school, especially in biology, Mom adds. My high school didn't offer any courses on tarot, psychic readings, or tapping into your inner medium, I quip. I'm not sure why I'm poking the bears, because neither of them will really look at me. Thomas tips his beer bottle back even though it's empty. Another one? I ask. He flashes a grateful smile, and for a split second, we're on the same team. The idea of that, someone having my back in this situation, is a fantasy. I made this bed of nails, and tonight need to sleep on it.
The next stop is
Sure,
Marlboro
Thomas
Station.
says, thanks. Dad? Yep. I grab 2 beers from the fridge and pop the tops with the church key hanging on a hook shaped like a cherry. Everything in this kitchen has remained in its place except me. My arm grazes Dad's shoulder when I set his down on the table. It's the first time we've touched in years. He shifts out of reach. Before I give Thomas his, I take a long pull off the bottle. As I hand it over, our fingers graze. I wait a few seconds, force contact before I release the beer. Thomas watches me before he says, I'm looking for more personal stories about your daughter. It's hard to get a clear picture of her childhood. Dad says, like all reporters, you want dirt. Thomas corrects, I want the truth. Dad tries to stare him down, but Thomas doesn't retreat. I'm both impressed with his level of determination and concerned. She helped the pickers during harvest, like to make homemade tamales with Carla, my manager's wife. We never lost the 3-legged race on the 4th of July. She loved when the blossoms came out, used to make crowns out of them. I chuckle. I made you wear them. Silence drops like a guillotine's blade. Thomas says, Sylvie tells me you and your wife have quite a love story. Dad glances at Mom. She gives a tiny nod. My grandfather and Hannah's were orchardists in this valley. Then World War II came. There were several Japanese families in High River at the time, mostly farmers and orchardists.
Marlboro Station. Doors normally open on the left.
Before they were taken away, interred in camps in California, they signed over their land to neighbors to make sure it was taken care of, not claimed by the government or bought by strangers while they were incarcerated. The agreement was that their neighbors would return the land once the Japanese were released from the camps. My grandfather and Hannah's granddad made that deal. Dad clears his throat. Hannah's mom was born at the camp. Conditions were brutal. Not enough food, no medicine. She almost died. What we did to those people was tragic, crime, but it was abysmal when they got out too. Lots of prejudice and cruelty perpetrated on folks who were just as American as you and me. There's grit in Dad's voice. He takes a gulp of water and continues. After 3 years, the Japanese returned to High River. Some of the folks they trusted refused to return their land, argued that they'd worked it for 3 years, so now it was theirs. The Japanese had signed it over legally.
The next stop is Franklin Station.
And given the times and the war, courts weren't too favorable, even if they could scrape together the money to seek justice. Many of those good people lost their land, their legacy. Dad finally looks at me after his last word, legacy. Your grandfather? Thomas asks. Not only gave Hannah's family back their land, he helped finance the machinery they needed, their employees, insurance, the works, until they got back on their feet, Dad says. Good man, Thomas notes. Dad nods. There was a deep friendship and loyalty between our families. Hannah's and my parents grew up together. When we started dating, they agreed it was fate at a time when marriage between culturally different folks wasn't universally accepted. We combined our orchards when we married, hoped to have a large family to pass it down to. But Mom couldn't have children of her own, I finished, so they end up with me. My dad's lips pucker like he's bitten into a lemon. Mom gets up, clears the dishes. She rinses plates and loads the dishwasher. I consider helping but decide against it. In 9th grade science, I learned that if you place the same poles of two magnets together, they repel. That's why we've always been. Thomas says, my father died when I was a kid, but I imagine he might have wanted to follow in his footsteps and be a lawyer too. An honorable profession, Mom intones her back to us. Did you think about adopting more children? Thomas asks. I applaud. Great idea.
Station.
You should have kept
Doors
it
normally open on the left.
until you found the right one. Dad grimaces. When we started the foster process, we were in our late 40s, already considered too old to adopt. Then how do you end up with me? I needle. He rubs his mouth. Luck, I guess. He's lying. Why? Dad drains the second beer. Any other questions? I shake my head. Huh. Thomas says, so you never saw any signs when she was a kid that Sylvie was different? Mom snaps, I told you no. Dad says, if you're asking if we thought Sylvie could read minds or whatever, the answer is never. She was a normal kid, good kid. The clear implication is that I'm no longer normal or good. Thomas glances at me. I give him a bruised smile. But this is nothing new. Hearing it up close and personal stings, but it also kicks Thomas even further into my corner. After 24
The
hours
next
with my
stop
parents,
is Barlow Maxwell Station.
he just might drop me from his expose out of pure pity. I'll take what I can get if it means saving myself. Have you ever been to one of Sylvie's shows? Look, Dad says, bottom line, what Sylvie does now, we don't understand it. We don't want to understand it or watch it in person. She was raised Catholic, Mom adds, like I'm not even in the room. The first commandment, I am the Lord thy God, thou shalt have no other gods before me. You went to Sunday school, church, Bible camp. I snort. It's not like I'm a witch or worship the devil. Mom slams the glass bowl like she just washed onto the counter. I'm surprised it doesn't break. Shocked
Barlow Maxwell Station. Doors normally open on the left.
that she's actually showing emotion. She whirls, then demands, I have a question. Did you throw away your morality all at once, or was it like the frog in the pot? The frog? Thomas asks. Place the frog in a pot of water, slowly turn up the heat, Mom says. The frog won't feel it. Realize he should hop out until it's too late and he's been cooked. I'm the frog, I tell Thomas. If we're sharing Sunday school stories, how about the one where the frog falls into a bucket of milk? Thomas says he drowns, then looks to Hannah like he's at a tennis match, waiting for her to return serve. Nope, I correct while making a swan out of my cloth napkin. He keeps swimming, never gives up until the milk is churned by his little froggy legs into butter, and he gets the hell out of the bucket and never comes back. I set the swan on the table.
The next stop is Calgary Zoo Station.
The napkin hasn't been starched, so the bird's proud neck droops. Mom has turned her back again. Methodically, she dries the walk. Religion aside, do you believe at all in Sylvie's ability? Thomas asks my parents. I admire his persistence. Maybe he's trying to get us kicked out. That's never happened before, not even after Mom discovered I was on the pill, but this is a night of firsts. No, Dad says, we do not believe that Sylvie has some sort of gift that allows her to know the future or talk to dead people. We don't hang our hats on nonsense. So far, I've batted away each paper tiger my parents have sent to attack, but Dad's tone of disgust is too much. I'm an intricately folded piece of origami scrunched into a tiny ball tossed away. The heat in my belly flares. We done? Dad asks. There's a game on TV. Just a few more questions, Thomas says. What can you tell me about Sylvie's birth
Calgary Zoo
parents
Station. Doors normally open on the left.
and her time in foster care? Mom turns, looks at Dad, not Thomas. Her hand drifts to her neck. I told you, she says, we don't know anything. Dad adds, it didn't matter. Once Sylvie arrived, she was ours. Thomas withdraws a letter from his back pocket. His name is typed in the center of the envelope. The return name and address printed in the top left corner is for the National Transportation Safety Board. I move behind Dad as he withdraws the sheet of paper inside, and we both silently read it. National Transportation Safety Board for 90 L'Enfant Plaza, Southwest, Washington, D.C., to Thomas Holmes, LA Times.
The next stop is Bridgeland Memorial Station.
Dear Mr. Holmes, we have received your request for information about the deaths of Becky and Seth Peters from the years 1996 to 2002, and even expand that search 5 years before and after your state dates. There is no record of a fatal crash involving either a Becky, Rebecca, or Elizabeth, common name variations, or a Seth, either married or single, with the surname Peters. Our database is definitive for all aircraft-involved incidents in the United States. If you have further questions, we are happy to do an additional search. Sincerely, Aaron K. Sedgwick. My heart crashes against the wall of my chest like it's trying to escape. It's fake, just like the Facebook account Thomas constructed for Theo and Katie. Dad holds out the letter to Mom. She gets her glasses from a drawer, takes the letter, and scans it.
Bridgeland Memorial Station. Doors normally open on the left.
My parents exchange a quick look. That's all. No shock, denial, outrage, just a silent look. And at that moment, I know two things. The letter isn't forged, and my parents knew that Seth and Becky Peters' plane crash was a lie. Mom takes off her readers and returns them to the drawer. I won't be awake when the two of you leave in the morning, she says. Wes will already be out in the orchard. Safe travels. She turns her back to us and begins to efficiently scrub every inch of the kitchen counters.